So, Real Prog fans, we have Anden here. Welcome. We're all in Amsterdam, hot off the back of the United Prog party last night. How did you guys get on? Tom.
How did I get on? Yeah, no, it was awesome. We played back to back with Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It was a shorter set, more of a showcase, but got to play a number of IDs. Played our new Colombian Soul remix. Energy in the room was fantastic. It was sold out, and it was just fun to be able to play for a lot of fans actually that were in town from New York, but also a lot of people that we never gotten a chance to play in front of.
Well, thanks for coming down and doing it. I really appreciate you being there. And sorry you couldn't make it in time.
I know, yeah. It was
these things happen.
Serious FOMO in the airport on the way over, but yeah, no, it looked like an amazing party.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. We just thought we'd sit down, chat a little bit about you guys. Got you a wicked Colombian Soul remix out at the moment. Sure. But yeah, just a few in-depth questions and see where things go.
Definitely.
So yeah, the Anden project's very unique, very different to anything else out there. I think very sitting in your own space, and a brother combo, which I'm not sure if everyone is aware of. Obviously, Pete and Tom. Being a brother combo, do you ever struggle with conflicting ideas, or how does that work as a project as such?
Yeah, I think. We were always really close growing up.
Yeah.
And so would listen to a lot of similar music, and I think with that said, a lot of similar kind of influences. And so
Which kind of influences were?
Yeah, so I mean, we both grew up actually playing classical instruments. And I think that's led us to write a lot of this kind of more like melodic house sound.
I suppose being able to learn and actually know how to write music, it kind of naturally you'll be able to put things down better than other people who are just trying to freestyle it. I suppose you've kind of got that instinct, and it's there for you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting place where we're at in terms of music theory, because we did play like instruments growing up, but we're not the people who have been playing piano for 20 years, and so while there's this understanding of music, there's also this degree of we don't exactly know what all the rules are, so we don't need to think about breaking them. We can just kind of do our own thing. But yeah, so I mean, and then even otherwise growing up, like Tom would always be sharing music with me. I would try to share some music with him. Tom being older probably didn't like what I was sharing with him. And
what
when
were
I was
you
in
sharing
middle
with
school,
him? Do you remember what you were sharing with him?
I remember what I shared with him for the first electronic music piece was I had gotten back from studying abroad in Australia.
Right.
And I gave him a 1 hour long Laid Back Luke mixtape.
Nice.
And I remember your reason when you put on the car.
Not a fan. And then a couple of years later, kind of dance music clicked for me. Because at that time in the States, I mean, this was probably 12 years ago at this point. Like it was popular.
A thing.
Yeah, it was like maybe in bigger cities, but we didn't grow up in a big city, so we were just kind of outside of that world. But I mean, listen to a fair bit of hip hop and just kind of random records here and there. But now it's funny, like when I find old CDs of things I used to listen to in high school, there were maybe 3 or 4 dance records that somehow made it onto those CDs, and those were always my favorite tracks.
Really?
But I didn't really realize that dance music was a thing, and so I just thought they were just kind of cool tracks. But
to be honest, I was exactly the same when growing up and listening to hip hop and stuff like that. It wasn't a natural thing. So exactly a similar kind of story. So it's interesting that you kind of come from the same kind of path. So I mean, transitioning into actual making music, and you're both coming from the same kind of viewpoint in terms of what you want creatively, or direction of your sound, or so have you ever had a bust up where you're like, no, we're not doing this, or no, we're not doing that, and you kind of disagreed on things and things got scrapped? Or how does that work with you guys?
I think in big picture direction, we've always been more or less on the same page.
Okay, that's good.
Certainly there are things that we disagree on, but I think it's good that we are so. I mean, we've known each other for forever, obviously, and so it's super easy to be totally transparent, and so I think those conversations they go over relatively easily because we both can get on the same page pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think being brothers, like there's an element of trust that we both have each other's best interests at heart too. Mm-hmm. And so when Pete says, no, you got to let me go on this one and trust me, I have a vision or I have an idea, I'm like, it's just all right,
just let it go.
Let it go. And there are times where I don't let it go, and there are times where he doesn't let it go.
I think that's important, right?
I think there's a good level of like creative friction that you create when you have that, and that also pushes, I think, each other to kind of continue to push forward and
I agree.
push the creative boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I find it fascinating because my relationship with my sister, I'm not sure I could sit in a studio and bounce ideas off her. Like it's just the relationship's not there, and every brother and sister combo is very different. But you obviously seem very close, which is cool. So it's nice that you're bringing it into music, and you can push that in a career as well. So, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So each of your records has like a specific theme, and I mean, incredible things, and vocals throughout. Mm-hmm. Who's the vocalist to start with, like, or is it a bit of both, or whose ideas come from, how's that set up?
Pete on the vocals.
Okay.
Pete's also the songwriter.
Okay.
So we started writing our own lyrics and recording vocals a few years ago. It was kind of on accident, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's this one record, Time by Pachanga Boys.
Okay.
It's like an older record. It's this 15.5-minute long kind of burner house track. But there's this vocal sample. It samples a Sufjan Stevens song, but there's this vocal sample which is horribly recorded, totally out of tune, out of time, but it works for the record.
Yeah.
And so we were actually working on our track Light, which ended up coming out on Zerothree.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if this vocal, which does not sound that great, can work on this record, maybe there's something that I could do to work on our record. And so I recorded this vocal, sent it off to Tom, and he's like, I think your email said almost verbatim, like, this is cool, but where'd the vocal come from? We'll never get the rights to something like this.
Nice.
It was, maybe Jamie can help us get this cleared. Where is the vocal from? And then you said that you did it, and going back to creative friction, I was like, haha, funny, like, where did it actually come from? And
so, and from there,
crazy.
And then that was, if anything, just a moment of encouragement to say, okay, well, what if we actually put some time into learning more and effort into songwriting, and kind of then over the years, in terms of actually singing, in terms of songwriting, in terms of recording and producing the vocals, we've just learned to get a little bit better with that. And so
I think it's an extra element that adds that extra, more than 10%, extra 50% to the record. It gives you that unique stamp, like, this is Anden. You put a lot of effort and time into it. People know the words, and you can sing, even if it's just the hooks that you put in. Some of them it's simple. It sticks in my head. Yeah,
and the vocals they make the records more human, which I think is ultimately what people connect with.
Yeah.
No, fair play. And then obviously very intricate melodies, like especially in the Colombian soul remixes as well. Out at the moment, there's a lot going on, but it's all has its own space, and I mean, very accomplished in terms of melody writing. I'm sure a lot of people will be extremely jealous of that, because I know it takes a lot of time to learn and experiment with melodies and trying to write them. And I speak to lots of different people where they struggle and get inspiration from that. And obviously your classical training helped you with that. But I mean, is there a certain place you start with melodies, or is it literally just jamming around on the keyboard, or have you taken some inspiration from another track, or like where do you usually start with stuff like that?
It varies to a degree. I think in general, just kind of jamming around on a keyboard is a good start. But I'm also, I think we're both pretty big believers in terms of idea generation and a kind of quantity over quality approach. That if you write 100 ideas, there's bound to be something good in there somewhere. And so I think we try to avoid getting stuck into one thing and tinkering with little bits for 3 hours. Like that kind of thing doesn't really lead to the best result. I think we find most of the time. So it's just writing a lot of ideas, seeing is there something here that sticks.
And I think also finding inspiration in other music that inspires us. I mean, we'll go and we'll also find other records that we really like, and we try and figure out what is it about the character of this record that is sticking with us that we like. And it's similar, I think, in kind of like the art world with like painting. You do a master study of another artist that you like, and I think sometimes that gets convoluted in dance music, and people say, "Oh, you're copying," or you're taking something that inspires you, and then you're kind of making it your own and applying it. So that's something that we do as well.
I suppose there's a fine line between copying and taking inspiration, right?
Totally.
This idea of referencing, of looking at other records. I mean, sure, we're not going to look at one record and use it for melody ideas and sound design ideas and arrangement ideas, because then it's like, okay. But if you take melody ideas from one track and an arrangement from another track and sound design from another track, and then that gets you 50% of the way there, and then the second 50% is Anden stuff, then it's an Anden record.
Nice. So any hardware stuff at home, or is it just purely soft synths, or what you? Because I mean, the Colombian soul thing sounds very analog, right?
Yeah,
so
we
you can tell straight away.
So a few years ago, for I think it was a birthday present, I got Pete a Korg MS-20 synthesizer.
Nice.
Which was
happy birthday.
Our first,
thanks.
Which you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Which was our first hardware synthesizer, and then since then the studio has slowly grown.
Nice.
Yeah. We have a Prophet Rev 2, which has been a lot of fun to work with. The Colombian Soul remix, we actually used a Roland SH-01A, which is their new remake of the 101.
Nice.
And so that's where you get, not to get too technical and nerdy, but you get the like oscillating pulse wave lead synth, which is pretty characteristic of that synthesizer.
It's a great sound.
But yeah, it's kind of weird sounding, but it's cool and
it works.
Yeah,
that's what makes dance music so special. Is you get those weird sounds. And, you know, it does work.
Yeah, there's a novelty to hearing something that you don't normally hear in a record.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's different. That's cool. I like that. Like, I'm gonna dance. So
100%. And I think that's again going back to the Anden sound. That's what you expect in an Anden record as well. Something that you haven't heard before.
Yeah. Would hope so.
No, 100%. Yeah, like, even in all the records that we've done, I think when you've sent them, it's like, okay, this is unique. Like, I have no expectation. It's just something fresh and where do we take this kind of thing. So it's good.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So you guys are responsible for this little progressive movement in New York, and you're doing your own events. You've done it for a while. Just tell us a bit more about what your concept was around them, and what inspired you. Has that started before you started producing? Or?
Yeah, so I guess starting kind of with just where Anden came from, and then how that kind of spawned the event series and everything. So Anden is somewhat derived from the word and, which is like, in our view, kind of a connector of things, and we were really kind of inspired by where house music came from around kind of the community concept. And so and being a connector, we came up with Anden. And when we originally started with this idea of Sound Room, it was, let's create a radio show and do it monthly, and then maybe that can evolve into an actual like live event series where we can start actually building like a grassroots kind of community in New York. And so we started throwing these Sound Room live parties about twice a year in 2016.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really fun getting to see those parties grow.
I bet, yeah.
I mean, we always end each event with what we call like the family photo. And it's cool seeing like the very first photo that we took in a really small shop in Soho in New York. It was done on a Polaroid, actually.
Yeah.
How many people are we talking?
Like 25 or 30.
Okay.
And as an aside, that was a super organic thing, because the person who actually took the photo was just a random person walking by on the street, saw this thing going on, and said, "Hey, this is cool. Can I take a photo?" Took a photo, gave it to us.
Yeah.
And then that became.
And then we were.
So you weren't even planning that.
No, it just happened, and then we kind of were like, "This is really cool. Maybe we should do this again at the next one." And then it's just became kind of a staple of the party. And it's fun looking back at those older photos as the parties continue to grow. And we just did one a couple weeks ago on Governor's Island in New York, and there were a few hundred people at the event. And it's nice looking at that very first photo and seeing the same people that are still at the one from a few weeks ago.
It's cool that you're still doing the photo as well.
Yeah, and a number of those people from the first photo actually volunteer to help make that party possible. So those are people that are helping check ticket holders, people helping run the live stream. And I mean, coming back to this idea of community, it's very much like the core kind of Anden group of people that we've surrounded ourselves with that have helped build our team. But also just kind of people in New York that now consistently kind of come out to see us play, and many of which we've become friends with. So
must be quite humbling, that people want to get involved and stay around and see your journey as well.
Yeah, no, it's humbling as we've seen kind of like the guest list grow and grow, and our close friends kind of continue to come, but the number of names that we don't recognize continue to grow and grow. And,
which is even more
knowing that the music is getting kind of beyond just our parents and close friends is humbling. Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun also being able to put on other local artists on the event. So there's a lot of super talented producers in New York that are making pretty similar music, and to get these people on the events, and especially it's in New York, it's in a lot of big cities, it can be pretty tough to break into the club scene. And so for us, we try to go for people who are actually making really great music, which for a lot of promoters I think is maybe not the priority. So it's that's been a lot of fun as well, getting to actually curate a lineup and do that.
The last 3 events we've had Enamor up We had Bale, who's released on Anjuna Deep as well. And then this most recent one, we had Deza, who's on Enhanced. And we also had Local Dialect, who's done some work recently with Nora and Pure in Gorgon City. And then Saison, David Oren.
Yeah, David Oren.
Another local kind of in the Burning Man scene.
Yeah, great skill.
Yeah. So it's a very cool eclectic mix of music, and we really enjoy kind of being able to bring in those other artists.
Good for you.
Use it as a forum,
It sounds like it's going really well, so it's nice to see.
Yeah, we'll have to have you out for the next one.
I'd love to come over for that, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys have been like, obviously grafting hard there. You've been grafting hard with your music, starting from the bottom, from 25 people, no listeners to your music, to now getting noticed, far and wide, and lots of stuff happening. A lot of producers, reach a point and they decide to give up, or they lose interest, or they lose passion, because it's hard to break into sometimes, and you do need a leg up sometimes. So as you're saying, you like to help people out. I think artists need to help each other to rise to the top. So, how would you keep driven? Has there ever been a point where you're like, oh, okay, Tom Pete, we're gonna have to stop here. I'm gonna go and I don't know, do something else here.
I mean, I've been DJing since 2008. It's something that I absolutely love doing, and I love this music, but I don't think that the music necessarily defines us who we are as people. And so I think having a lot of other interests outside of music, when we need to take a step back, we kind of have that outlet. Pete's also getting a doctorate in political science right now.
Amazing.
I have a dog and a wife, and
life.
I like going hiking. I think being able to have those other outlets is really helpful, because it almost makes me that much more excited when I do get time to put over the music. And I think, especially living in New York, if I was doing just music all the time, I mean, New York is, I think, a very difficult place to do anything creative, just because there's just so much hustle, and it's expensive, and there's a lot of competition. And that, I think, would be pretty unhealthy mentally.
100%.
So I think it's really important to try and live a balanced life, and if you can kind of round that out and have music as a part of that, music can hopefully stay fun and be kind of that creative outlet.
And it's interesting, music becomes the outlet for the other things that they're involved in. But I think it's definally having the balance is super important.
No, that's fair. So I was talking about getting noticed, and obviously Diplo has you've been involved with him a few bits now with that. That's incredible. Guest mix on BBC Radio 1. Remixing his records. How does that feel when someone that big is asking you to get involved with things? Or
it's super humbling, and I think it's really cool to see an artist that big, an artist who's been a successful crossover act, really embracing
in many genres
deep
as well.
Really embracing deep house and underground music, and kind of what he's doing with Higher Ground is super, super cool. I think also it's having him play that record at handful of festivals, at Burning Man. It's our music getting played for people who maybe would not have heard it otherwise. And we played a party with him at the Brooklyn Mirage a few weeks ago, and there's a lot of people who I think probably were coming to that event expecting a Diplo party, and then all of a sudden there's Anden playing this progressive house melodic techno thing. But we had a lot of really cool conversations with people afterwards, where it's wow, I had no idea that this was the kind of music that was going to be here. I had no idea you guys existed, but this is a cool thing. And I think for us, I'm sure for you too, there's kind of this the sort of unique story of how you find this sort of niche within music, and a handful of artists that help get you into it, and whether it's us or it's other people, but it's cool being able to connect with these folks who haven't really found this niche of music yet. And if you can help bring them in, I think that's
almost
that's
like
really
education
cool.
a little bit, but
and
to a certain extent.
And it's cool to be able to work and connect with an audience that we wouldn't be able to otherwise, and Diplo has definitely helped facilitate that for us. And
amazing. It's incredible to see you on, because obviously Radio 1's such a big thing for us in the UK, and it's seeing you splattered across the socials there. I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
And he's also, I think, going back to your other question, just about the length of time that it takes to put into getting a creative project going. I mean, he's such a good example of someone who's been doing Diplo
20
for years and years. I mean, I remember back to when I was in high school and I saw a BlackBerry commercial on TV, and it was Diplo running around with his BlackBerry and how he needed that to get his music business done. I mean, if that tells you how long, like way back then, he was successful and on mainstream television, and then fast forward a decade later, and he's got Thomas Wesley as a country music project. He hijacked Jonas Brothers' social media the other day because he did a track with them. He's also got Higher Ground, which is this new kind of underground house label. I mean, he's basically built like this enterprise, but also stayed kind of core to, like, I think his mission, which is I want to kind of be a creative in multiple outlets. So yeah.
No, cool. Well, and this leads me on to the Colombian Soul remix and Mark Knight and D.Ramirez and getting the approval from that as well, which is really cool. I mean, they love their yellow music as well, and the remix came in, and wow, what a sound! It's like a wall of goodness. It's superb, and a darker sound like than we've seen on Zerothree from you guys before, which is very welcomed. Is the Anden sound changing, developing? Where do you see it going over the next, say, 12 months? We've come from like Retrograde, which is a bit more accessible to all the way down to the scale now to Colombian Soul, which is a lot more driving and almost techno influenced, right? So,
no, I think we've always tried to make the music that we are most inspired by. And so I think a focus of ours probably in the last 6 to 12 months has been making music that can fit into DJ sets. And so, we want the music to be accessible. We want it to be able, someone to be able to find it on Spotify and have it translate. But I think the primary focus for us is, is this going to work in the club?
So you can make,
the original record is obviously so iconic, and it's tough to remix a track like that because there are people who, for them, this song is really special, and they have had this special experience with this, and you don't want to screw it up, right?
No, of course.
And so it's a matter of being able to have our own take on the record, but also still paying homage to the original.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't enjoy remixes, and they hate things when they come up.
And there have been a couple of messages that have come in saying, "Cool remix, nothing's going to beat the original for me," and it's like, all right, fair play, cool. But so that was a really fun experience for us. But I think it's a little bit of a darker take, largely because we're thinking about, how is this going to translate to the club? Where is this going to fit in terms of DJ set?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I think also as we've started to play more and more shows, thinking about writing music to actually fit into our DJ sets. I was a DJ before I was a producer. I love curating and finding other people's records. I found a Jamie K record way back in the day. And,
ooh, I didn't know those existed.
But I think as we've started playing more and more, and we've started to kind of like build this sound, we want to be cognizant of trying to play as much of our own music in our live show to be able to share that with people, and so writing records a little bit more suited for the club is important. We just announced that we'll be touring with Brum on his thank you very much, on his Deep State tour, and so trying to get a lot of new music written for that, for those shows and everything.
So there's going to be a lot of exclusives and a lot of IDs.
There will be some time spent in the studio over the next month or so, just getting ready for that, which kicks off next month.
Good for you guys. It's very exciting times. I mean, and again, it just shows the progression here. Another great name involved, and exciting times. I'll finish up with the last bit. Amsterdam, we've got some coffee. Obviously, not the best coffee right now, but
I don't know, this is pretty fantastic.
I've been drinking so much coffee this week. But coffee fans,
have to be. I'm up almost every day at 6 a.m. and
it keeps you going.
Oh, you gotta.
100%.
I got an espresso machine at my wedding, and that was the single-handed best gift I've ever received.
Really nice.
Other than those passport holders that I got you, that's so practical.
Don't forget them.
Yeah, never forget.
You buy him since he buys you.
I
see how this works.
Equitable relationship. So, but no, yes, coffee, 100%.
Yeah, is it a big scene in New York for you or not?
Yeah, it is. It's almost like like you have coffee snobs. People are like, no, I can't do that type of coffee. And some people are like, it's all going to the same place, just get the caffeine. But no, there's an art to it. And
everyone has their spot too, their favorite place they like to go to.
So have you got a recommendation in New York that you should point everyone to go to, or?
Oh yeah. So there's a spot over in my place in Brooklyn in Crown Heights called Cafe Eloise.
Okay.
If you go to Cafe Eloise, they have phenomenal coffee. If you go into their bathroom, there's 4 pictures of my dog on their bathroom wall. The first day that they opened, they had a photographer there taking photos of dogs.
Wow.
And my dog is
so your dog's famous.
Quite good looking. And so my dog, for whatever reason, is the only one that they've chosen to stick on their walls. So
there you go. Nice. Proud dad.
Yeah, very proud dog dad.
Yeah, my personal favorite spot is Cafe Jack's in Upper East Side in Manhattan.
Nice.
It's pretty close to my old apartment. It's definitely a neighborhood, locals only kind of place. You never kind of stumble upon it if you're just visiting. It's a pretty residential neighborhood, but yeah, there's a lot of Anden work that has been done from that cafe, including some production work. So
yeah, there was a record that we put out a couple years ago called Venice Grind.
Okay.
Which was actually titled after a record shop. Coffee shop where I think the record at that point was done, but we were sitting in the coffee shop when
we need a name for this.
And we kind of looked up, and it was like Venice Grind.
Done.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Done. Why not? The names come from all sorts of places.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up there. But great to speak to you both.
Yeah.
And thank you for the remix.
No, thanks for having us.
Looking forward to what's to come for you guys in the future.
Very excited.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cheers.